In the year 1922, deep in the countryside of Bavaria, Germany, there was a small isolated farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. It was surrounded by thick forest, frozen fields, and long stretches of empty land. The nearest village was far away. At night, there were no lights, no passing travelers, and no sounds, except the wind cutting through the trees. To most people, it looked like an ordinary farm, but what happened there would become one of the most terrifying unsolved murder mysteries in history, because at Hinterkaifeck, an entire family was slaughtered. And the most disturbing part is this: many investigators believe the killer may have stayed inside the house for days after the murders, eating their food, feeding their animals, living beside their bodies, a farm full of secrets. The family living at Hinterkaifeck was known as the Gruber family. The household included Andreas Gruber, the strict father, Cecilia Gruber, his wife, their adult daughter, Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's young daughter, also named Cecilia, Victoria's baby son, Joseph, and a maid who helped with the house. The Grubers were not well liked by the villagers. They were known as strange, private people who kept to themselves, and Andreas Gruber, the father, had a reputation for being harsh, controlling, and unpredictable. There were even rumors of dark family secrets, things no one wanted to speak about out loud. But no matter what people thought about the Grubers, nobody believed they deserved what would happen next. The footsteps in the snow. In the days leading up to the murders, Andreas noticed something unsettling. After a snowfall, he found footprints near the farm. The footprints came from the forest. They walked toward the house, but there were no footprints leading away. It was as if someone had arrived and never left. Andreas searched around the property. He checked the barn, he checked the shed, he checked behind the trees. Nothing but the footprints haunted him, because they didn't make sense. Who would walk to an isolated farm in the middle of nowhere and then vanish? The noises in the attic. Soon after, Andreas began hearing strange noises. At night, when the house was silent, he heard footsteps above him, not downstairs, not outside, but in the attic. Slow movement, dragging sounds, as if someone was carefully walking in the darkness. Andreas went up to investigate. He searched the attic completely, but he found nothing. No person, no animal, no sign of anyone living there. Yet the noises continued. Night after night, the house felt watched, like something was there, listening, waiting. The first maid flees. The Gruber family had a maid who helped with the house, but the maid became terrified. She claimed the farm was haunted. She said she could feel something evil inside the walls. One day, she quit without warning. She left the farm and told villagers, "There is something in that house." People assumed she was exaggerating, but she never returned, and what she feared was real. A new maid arrives. On March 31st, 1922, a new maid arrived. Her name was Maria Baumgartner. It was her first day working at Hinterkaifeck. She arrived with her belongings, ready to start a new life. But she didn't know about the footprints. She didn't know about the attic noises. She didn't know the farm was already marked for death, because that very night, Hinterkaifeck became a slaughterhouse, the night of the murders. Nobody knows exactly how it started, but investigators believe the killer was already nearby, possibly hiding in the barn, possibly hiding in the attic, possibly watching the family for days. That night, one by one, members of the Gruber family were drawn outside toward the barn. The barn was dark, cold, and silent, and inside that barn, someone was waiting with a weapon, a Matica heavy farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The killer attacked with brutal force. The victims were struck in the head, one after another, and then their bodies were dragged into a pile. When the murders were discovered later, 4 bodies were found in the barn: Andreas Gruber, Cecilia Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, and young Cecilia, all dead, all stacked together, as if the killer wanted to hide them, or worse, as if the killer wanted to keep them close. The killer entered the house. After murdering 4 people in the barn, the killer didn't run. He didn't flee into the forest. Instead, he went into the farmhouse. Inside, 2 more victims were killed. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, was murdered in her room, and Victoria's baby son, Joseph, was also killed. 6 people dead, an entire family wiped out. But the horror didn't end with the murders, because the farm didn't go quiet. It kept running, as if someone was still living there. Days of silence. After March 31st, the Gruber family disappeared. Nobody saw them, nobody heard them, but something strange happened. Neighbors noticed smoke coming from the chimney. The animals were not starving. The cows were being milked. The livestock were being fed. That could only mean one thing. Someone was still there. Someone was walking around the property. Someone was living inside the farmhouse. But the family was missing. The discovery. After several days, villagers became worried. Mail was piling up. The children hadn't been seen. No one had come into town. So on April 4th, neighbors went to the farm to investigate. When they arrived, everything seemed strangely normal. The animals were alive. The doors were closed. Nothing looked damaged. But the silence was heavy. Then they entered the barn, and what they found made them freeze in terror. For bodies lay stacked together under hay. The family was dead, murdered. The villagers ran for help. Police arrived shortly after, and when they searched the farmhouse, they found the other two bodies, the maid and the baby, all dead. The most terrifying detail: when investigators searched the house, they noticed something horrifying. The killer had been inside after the murders. There was food missing. Meals had been prepared. The kitchen looked used. The fireplace had been lit, and the animals had been cared for. This suggested the killer may have stayed at Hinterkaifeck for several days after murdering the family, sleeping in their home, eating their bread, walking through the halls, possibly listening to the bodies in the barn settle in the cold. And no one knew the killer was still there, while the world outside continued as normal. The little girl who survived. One of the most tragic and horrifying details involved the young girl Chizilia. Investigators believed she may not have died immediately. They found clumps of her hair torn out. Her fingers were injured. This suggested she was alive for hours after the attack, alone, in the barn, surrounded by her dead family. In the darkness, while the killer remained somewhere nearby, it was one of the most heartbreaking discoveries in the entire case. Night signs of robbery. At first police believed it might have been a robbery, but valuables were still inside the home. Money was untouched. Jewelry was not stolen. Everything remained, which raised a terrifying question. If it wasn't robbery, then why kill them? The murders felt personal, like hatred, like revenge, or like something far darker. The suspects, the case, quickly became chaos. The entire village became suspicious of each other. Police questioned many people, but one name stood out more than the rest. A man named Lorenz Schlittenbauer. He had known the family. Some rumors said he may have had a relationship with Victoria. Some believed he might even have been the father of the baby, Joseph. But what made people suspicious was his behavior after the bodies were found. Witnesses said Lorenz entered the house alone. He didn't seem afraid. He walked around as if he knew what he would find. He even handled evidence, contaminating the crime scene. Some believed he was trying to hide something, but police never had enough proof to arrest him. No fingerprints, no confession, no weapon found. And in 1922, forensic science was limited. The evidence was lost. The scene was destroyed by curious villagers, and the killer vanished into history, the unsolved end. Despite investigations, despite questioning the villagers, despite searching the forests and nearby towns, no one was ever convicted. The murder weapon was never clearly recovered. The killer was never officially identified. The case went cold, and the farm became a symbol of pure horror. Eventually, the farm was demolished. But even after the buildings were gone, the story remained, because nobody could forget what happened there. The horror that still remains. Even today, people still ask the same questions. Who was hiding in the attic? Who left the footprints in the snow? Who lured the family one by one into the barn? And why did the killer stay behind? Feeding the animals, cooking meals, living there as if it was his home now. Some believe the killer was someone the family knew, someone who had been watching them, someone who felt hatred or obsession. Others believe it was a stranger, a traveler, a psychopath, someone who simply wanted to kill. And some people believe something darker, that Hinterkaifeck wasn't just a farm, that it was cursed. But evil had been living there long before the murders, and the family simply became the next victims, because whatever happened at it didn't feel human. It felt like the work of something cold, something patient, something that didn't fear God or the law, something that could live beside death and feel nothing. Final thought. Imagine walking through a quiet forest road and seeing a farmhouse in the distance, smoke rising from the chimney, a light on inside, animals calmly moving in the barn. Everything looks normal, but inside that house, 6 people are dead, and the person responsible is still there, eating, sleeping, watching the road, waiting. And then one night, he leaves, disappearing into the dark, never caught, never punished, just another shadow in history. And that is why the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most terrifying unsolved mysteries ever. Because the killer didn't just murder a family, he took their home, and for a short time he lived among the dead. If you like these stories, please like and subscribe.